You are living off of me. Know your place. If you defy me, we're getting a divorce. That's enough. I can't take it anymore. Fine by me. My name is Amelia. I am 31 years old and a full-time housewife. Jack and I have been married for a year. We started dating through a mutual friend's introduction. Jack, 2 years older than me, is an office worker. He was a very pleasant and upstanding young man. I hadn't been in a romantic relationship for a while, and on my friend's recommendation, I started dating Jack. As we dated, I was drawn to Jack's humility, his brightness, and his proactive nature. I began to feel he was my soulmate. Eventually, we got married. Happiness was supposed to await us. You're late. Where have you been loafing around? Before I could even say I'm home, Jack's shout echoed through. You took too long. Where did you go? Just to the store nearby. On a cold night in mid-December, I had just rushed out of the house without even having time to wear a jacket because of his yelling. What? Are you mocking me? I come home tired, and I expect dinner to be ready. Can't you do something so basic? When Jack came home, he was extremely angry with the dinner I had prepared. Why is there no salad? You have it with steak, right? That's common sense, isn't it? Facing Jack's fierce temper, I quickly ran to the store to buy salad and hurried back. But as I panted and breathed out white mist, Jack shouted at me even more angrily. "Gay store, are you out of your mind? Normally, you'd go to a supermarket." Pointing at the salad I had just bought, he looked at me with disbelief. "Is your sense of money skewed? What kind of rich person do you think you are? Buying chopped vegetables like that?" Unable to hold back, I finally retorted. "Usually, I go to the supermarket, but it's far, and I thought I had to hurry. I told you I had run out of vegetables. And if the food gets cold, you get the most upset? So I quickly bought it from the nearest store. Indeed, forgetting to buy vegetables was my mistake. But was it necessary to get so angry over steak without salad? Yet, my words only enraged Jack more. "Don't mess with me. Are you talking back? Instead of apologizing, are you trying to blame me?" My rebuttal only fueled his anger. Jack's lecture went on for almost an hour. In the end, he said, "I can't eat this cold meal." Then, he turned over the dinner I had painstakingly prepared and went out to eat elsewhere. A few days later, I visited Grandma living nearby while airing out my parents' house, which was on sale. You know, Grandma, your prediction failed for the first time." "What are you talking about? I didn't make any predictions." She laughed with a puzzled expression. This grandmother lived near my parents' home and had been fond of me since I was little. "Everything you said always came true. If not a prediction, then it's a prophecy." I gave a wry smile to the puzzled-looking grandmother. "If you told me, 'Don't go to the shopping street today,' then the shopping street would have a fire. And when I was told, 'Don't play at home today, go outside,' I reluctantly went out, and our house got robbed, right? If I had stayed at home, I might have run into the thief. It could have been dangerous." There were also many instances where Grandma seemed to predict various events accurately, like a real prophet. "Hey, Grandma, are you listening?" "I am listening. But those are just coincidences." Even when she said things like that, Grandma always quietly listened to me whenever she felt something was off. When my single mother became ill, if Grandma hadn't told me, I might not have been mentally prepared. Right before my mother passed away, she told me, "Grandma once said that something incredibly happy will happen to Amelia on Christmas in the future. Knowing you have a happy future ahead makes me really happy." In the hospital room, what my mother told me about Grandma's revelation became a beacon of hope, a moment when I could feel my mother's love. So when Jack proposed to me the Christmas before last, I was overjoyed, thinking that was the prediction coming true. I never doubted the happy future with Jack. But after we got married, Jack's attitude changed drastically. The once kind Jack became aggressive, shouting at me over trivial things, like the recent incident over salad. If the food cooled down, he'd say, "I can't eat this." Or he'd complain, "The soup is cold," even though he'd been busy with his phone or watching TV and ignoring the meal. He criticized everything I did, from cooking to cleaning and laundry. A perfect example of a moral harasser. As our short marriage continued, I felt more and more suffocated. I don't want to go home with a husband like that. With tears in my eyes, I told Grandma, and she responded, "It's already evening. You need to prepare dinner." I felt slightly rejected by Grandma's gentle words. As I looked at her resentfully, she said, "It'll be okay. Be patient now. You might face hardships, but you'll be happy. Trust in yourself. There's a very happy Christmas ahead for you. The universe is always watching." Her words made me turn back to her. Is that another one of your predictions? Who knows? I'm just an old lady. She evaded the question with a vague response. All right, I'll try harder. If I try, Jack will change, right? I decided to switch my mindset, thinking it was too early to deem her prediction a miss. But even then, Jack's moral harassment continued daily. Where's the food? What about the bath? Did you iron my shirt? Instead of getting better, Jack's behavior worsened day by day. It had only been a year since our marriage, but he took it for granted to order me around. There wasn't a single word of kindness from him. Who do you think you are? What's wrong? One night when I returned home, as usual, Jack was angry. How many times have I told you I'm tired when I come home? And you can't even greet me or have a proper meal ready. Who do you think you are coming home at this hour? I told you I had plans today, right? I even left a note about the neighborhood gathering. I prepared the food too. What's your problem? Problem? Do you expect me to microwave and eat that? Can you even eat such food? You're always taking shortcuts. Shortcuts. I made it properly and left it for you. Don't make excuses. If it's not freshly made, it's a shortcut. It's all just madness. What's your top priority? The neighborhood association? That's not right, is it? I'm the one providing for you, and if you want to be my wife, you only need to listen to what I say. How can you say that? I was rendered speechless by his audacity. Jack then said with a demon-like expression, "You have no family or relatives. If I were to abandon you, you wouldn't survive on your own, right? Women like you should just shut up and listen to me. If you defy me, it's divorce." He said this with a smirk on his face. He seemed like a complete sadist. It appeared as if he was venting his frustrations by trying to dominate her. Can't take this anymore. Those words almost left her lips, but she knew saying them would just add fuel to the fire. "Hey, where's my dish?" Reluctantly and with a heavy heart, I prepared the dish for him. One day, after such continuous torment, I suddenly felt severe pain in her lower abdomen while shopping and collapsed. People around me called an ambulance, and I was taken to the hospital. When she had regained her composure, the doctor explained my condition, and I was left in shock. The symptoms suggest a disease that can be transmitted through marital relations. Your husband came earlier, and we tested him just in case. He also requires treatment. It seems he was asymptomatic and didn't notice. I'm afraid to say this, but it's expected that conceiving a child will be extremely difficult from now on. Everything went dark in front of her eyes. As the doctor left, Jack frantically followed him. The reality that I might never have a child hit me hard. As I mulled over the words that were told to me, tears naturally started to flow. However, I needed to hear more details. With that thought, I followed the doctor and Jack with a pale face. When I finally caught up to them, I was shocked by the conversation I overheard between Jack and the doctor. "Doctor, does this mean everyone I've been involved with needs to be tested?" Of course. If everyone isn't treated simultaneously, the infection will just be transmitted again. The test, it'll be obvious to them what it's for, right? Yes, they will undoubtedly know. Jack persistently pressed on. I listened with a feeling of despair to his conversation with the doctor, who seemed annoyed by his persistence. Listening closely, it became apparent that Jack had affairs with at least 3 other women, and it seemed he was still involved with all of them. In a room where no one was present, I spoke facing my mother's portrait. "You know, Mom, I had hopes. Even with such a terrible husband, I believed if we had a child, he'd change. I lived hoping that the struggles would eventually lead to happiness. But it seems it wasn't meant to be. It seemed Jack only ever thought of himself. Not a word of concern for me. And now the news that I might never have children in the future. I had always dreamed of a happy family surrounded by my husband and children. Tears fell onto the picture of her mother I held in my lap. Unable to hold back, I began to sob uncontrollably. At that moment, Jack appeared. Instead of comforting words, he threw papers at me. "Stop moping around. You're crying here without even caring about me. As a punishment, here's a divorce form. I can submit it whenever I like." Always looks so gloomy. It's annoying. I can divorce you anytime. It's you who will suffer. If you don't want to be divorced, work harder. I'm not moping around. Talking back again. "I won't give you this month's living expenses," he said with a smug grin. "You're living off me. Know your place. If you defy me, remember, it's divorce." After saying his piece, he left with a satisfied expression. Divorce, huh? Staring at the divorce form, I felt a chill in my heart. "Mom, I've decided. Please protect me." Saying that, I wiped the tears off my mother's photo. For a while after that, I continued with my usual life. However, that was just the preparation period for me to execute a certain decision. One day, when Jack was in another one of his foul moods, I said to him, "You said if I went against you, it would mean divorce, right?" Remember that well, don't you? If you don't want a divorce, then reflect on your actions." Jack, laughing as he said that, prompted me to retort, "Are you an idiot?" I started my counterattack. At my unexpected response, Jack looked surprised. "What did you just say?" "It's always the same lines from you. Is your vocabulary that limited? Always talk about being an idiot or divorce. Are you really that dumb? What did you say? Enough is enough. Let's get a divorce. Just as you wish. Let's become complete strangers." Jack, utterly shocked, couldn't say a word. I smiled and said, "I've already taken all my important belongings, so if anything of mine remains, feel free to throw it away. Goodbye." I slowly took off the apron Jack bought for me when we were dating, folded it, placed it in front of him with the house key on top, grabbed my suitcase, and left the house. "Hey, what's going on?" It seemed Jack finally came to his senses and chased after me, but I didn't care. I felt refreshed. Feeling very invigorated, I headed back to my parents' home, which I had decided to move back into and had stopped listing for sale. I ignored all of Jack's persistent calls from our house. The next month, even after the divorce papers had long been processed, Jack kept annoyingly contacting me. "Have you reflected on your actions yet? If you apologize, I might forgive you." Tired of his arrogant messages, I muted the notifications. However, due to his relentless persistence, I decided to meet him one last time at my former in-law's place. "Why are you ignoring me?" Perhaps because of his parents' presence, Jack's tone wasn't as aggressive, and he tried to sound more reasonable. "It's cruel not to reply when I've contacted you so many times." "Oh, that? I muted your notifications." "What?" "Because you're annoying." "I'm annoying?" "Yes, annoying. So, what do you want to talk about now that we're strangers?" I deliberately responded in an annoyed manner, and Jack's face became filled with anger. "What's with that attitude? In front of my parents, no less. Who do you think you are?" Oh, he's showing his true colors now. Realizing himself who had raised his voice, he shifted back to a softer tone. "Guy, I'm sorry." A word of apology I had never heard during our married life. "Oh, so you can apologize. How impressive." Biting back the words on the tip of my tongue, I pressed him further. "So, what do you want with me now that we're divorced?" Frustrated with my unyielding attitude, even in front of his parents, Jack asked. "That's the point I don't get. It sounds weird to me. How are you living now? Aren't you struggling without me?" Jack pretended to look concerned, although he knew where I was staying but never visited. His questions seemed so insincere. "If Amelia wishes, we can still consider getting back together. How about that? Aren't you happy?" I couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Are you serious? Who do you think you are? I'm not happy or troubled by it. I can take care of myself. And wasn't the allowance you gave me when we lived together only $200? Aren't you the one who's troubled now that you no longer have someone to do the chores? Since living on my own and saving the money I used to spend on you, life has become much easier. If it's better now, why should I think of reconciling? I really don't understand what you're saying." Seeing my puzzled look, Jack's anger started to build. Aren't you just a full-time housewife? Besides, there's no need to discuss such details in front of our parents. Jack glanced nervously towards his parents, who were watching from behind a partition. "Jack, we're not kids anymore. Stop looking at your parents and calm down. Also, all your secrets, they're out." I silenced him and began to reveal all. "You seem to misunderstand. I'm not just a housewife. Remember when I told you I used to live in France? I'm fluent in French, you know. That's why I worked from home as a translator. That's how I supplemented the insufficient $200 you gave me. Remember all those French books I had? Oh, you probably don't. You, with your dim-witted brain, never bothered to even look at them. Thanks to that, you never noticed the recording equipment I had." "What?" At the mention of recording, Jack looked as if he had been punched in the gut. "My former father-in-law handed me a voice recorder." Upon seeing this, Jack paled. "See, now it's all out in the open. Everyone, even your parents, knows the hurtful words you've said to me every single day. Your parents have even apologized to me, tearfully saying they're sorry for the way their son treated me. That's not." As he tried to escape the situation, my former mother-in-law held him back. I then pulled out a document. It was a copy of our divorce papers. For someone as clueless as you, I've marked the important parts with Post-its. Take a good look." Jack, in disbelief, exclaimed, "This can't be real." "Recognize the names." I pointed to the witness section of the divorce papers. Written there were names of people Jack knew all too well. Actually, there weren't enough spaces to write all their names. "After all, you had more than 2 affairs, didn't you?" "Wait. Why should I wait?" It wasn't me who replied. It was a voice filled with resentment. "You. Jack, you had the fact that you had a disease from us, right? And since neither of us has been with anyone else, you must have been the one who brought it in. And what do you mean you're having affairs? Weren't you the one who sweet-talked me, saying we'd marry one day? That's what married men always say. That's what married men always say. That's. We've also heard the cruel things you said to your wife. You're an enemy to all women, not just us. You're inhuman." The revealed mistresses accused him, and Jack slumped in defeat. Watching their son, the former in-laws sighed heavily. True to their suspicions, I had orchestrated everything. Before submitting the divorce papers, I had an investigation company dig up the information and had been in contact with the mistresses. Of course, at that stage, I had also spilled everything to my former in-laws. It's time to give up. Whimpering, Jack was silenced, never to speak again. After that, at the fervent request of my former in-laws, wanting to teach their son a lesson, both I and the other women involved with Jack demanded compensation for damages, mental distress for me, and frauds to them. Given that they hadn't known he was married, these women too were legitimate victims. Moreover, Jack's workplace was his parents' company. It was decided that the damages he owed would be deducted from his monthly salary. Forced to return to his family home under the watchful eyes of his parents, Jack was now destined to spend many years of his life paying off these damages. 5 years have passed since then. "Amelia, what's up?" As I paused to look at a Christmas tree that caught my eye, my husband, who had walked a few steps ahead, noticed and called out to me. Breathing out white puffs of air in the cold, his ears were red as he smiled warmly at me. In his arms, our young son also had cheeks red like apples. I felt an overwhelming love for the two of them. Grandma was right. I whispered softly. My current husband was the brother of one of the women Jack had cheated with. I strangely got along well with those women, and our relationship continued. It was during that time that I met my current husband. He gently comforted and healed my wounded heart. It's truly an incredible story. If it hadn't been for my miserable marriage with Jack, I wouldn't have met my current husband. It is generally said life is unpredictable, and this situation truly exemplifies it. You'll face hardships, but you'll surely find happiness. I was deeply reflecting on these words that my grandmother once told me. And after a while since being with my current husband, it was on a Christmas day when I suddenly felt sick. When we rushed to the hospital, I discovered I was pregnant. Just as Grandma had prophesied, I was overjoyed to the point where the nurse had to calm me down. It was indeed a Christmas miracle. Every year around this season, I feel deeply grateful. I faced many challenges and got hurt, but now I'm genuinely happy. Snapping back to the present moment as my son reaches out to me. Let's go home quickly and have dinner. I'll make something warm for us. Sounds good. Yay. With beaming smiles, the three of us linked our hands and continued walking. This is the life I had always dreamed of. The sound of Christmas songs echoed throughout the town,